Ayaka Tanaka stepped gracefully onto the jet bridge, her black heels tapping softly against the polished floor, the hum of boarding passengers buzzing around her like background noise, yet her focus never wavered. Today was not an ordinary trip. It was the beginning of a high-stakes journey to New York, where she was set to sign a historic partnership that could redefine the global tech industry, a deal she had spent months negotiating with some of the most powerful corporations in the world. And though she was CEO of one of Asia's fastest-rising firms, she carried herself with a quiet elegance, her navy suit tailored to perfection, her hair neatly pulled back, and her demeanor calm, almost understated, as though power did not need to shout to be seen. She entered the cabin of the first-class section, her ticket already in hand, her seat number glancing back at her from the boarding pass. 2A? She eased into the plush leather seat, slipped her tablet into the side pocket, and exhaled softly. She planned to review her notes, catch up on her sleep, and get ready for the flurry of meetings that were to come over the next 12 hours. Around her, other passengers settled in, businessmen loosening ties, couples sipping champagne, and attendants gliding gracefully down the aisle, offering warm towels and practiced smiles. The calm, however, shattered within moments as a tall blonde woman, in a striking red dress, oversized sunglasses perched arrogantly on her nose despite being indoors, strode into the cabin with an air of entitlement so heavy it seemed to suffocate the space around her. Without hesitation, she stopped directly in front of Ayaka's seat, her manicured finger pointing at the chair as though she were claiming property. "That's not your seat," the woman declared, her American accent sharp and dripping with disdain. Ayaka, ever polite, offered a small bow of acknowledgement and replied softly, "Excuse me, but this is seat 2A, and here's my boarding pass." The blonde leaned closer, lowering her sunglasses to reveal piercing eyes filled not with reason but arrogance. "No," she said coldly, "that seat is for my bag." She motioned to the bright orange designer handbag swinging from her wrist, plopping it onto the seat beside Ayaka as if the matter were settled. Ayaka straightened her posture and calmly repeated, "I'm afraid this is my assigned seat, miss," despite the gasp from passengers nearby. That's when the venom spilled out, words so sharp they pierced to the hum of boarding chatter. "Then move. Go sit somewhere else. You don't belong here. This is for people who matter." She leaned back and spat, twisting her lips into a sneer. "Go back there with the rest of them. You're just another Asian monkey," making the insult get even worse. The word's brutality astonished the cabin into silence. Ayaka's hand tightened slightly on her tablet, her breath steady but heavy in her chest, every fiber of her being telling her to respond. Yet she held her ground in silence, her eyes calm, her dignity intact. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, some whispering, some pulling out phones to record the unfolding scene, while the blonde woman, Samantha Williams, daughter of a notorious U.S. tycoon known as much for scandal as for wealth, smirked as though she had won a victory. A flight attendant hurried over, her face pale, caught between duty and fear, stammering, "Ladies, please, let's resolve this calmly." But Samantha waved her off like a servant, barking, "Put her somewhere else. Don't you know who I am?" Ayaka, still standing by her seat, felt the sting of not only insult but also injustice. How quickly people bent when money and arrogance demanded it. As the staff hesitated, clearly intimidated by the mention of power and wealth, dozens of passengers were looking at her, some sympathetic, some indignant, but all waiting to see what she would do. And though the insult burned inside her, she chose silence for now, not because she was powerless, but because she understood something Samantha could not. True power does not rush, it waits, it plans, it strikes when the moment is undeniable. Ayaka quietly stepped aside. Standing in the aisle as Samantha threw herself into the seat with a victorious grin, crossing her legs and tossing her bag onto the next chair, like a queen securing her throne, while the murmurs of the crowd grew louder, their phones recording every cruel smirk, every arrogant gesture. 10 minutes, Ayaka thought to herself, gripping her phone in her hand as she dialed a quiet number with her thumb. 10 minutes, and the world will see who really belongs here. The tension in the cabin thickened with every second as Samantha Williams sank arrogantly into Ayaka's rightful seat, her designer heels tapping against the floor as if keeping tempo with her own self-importance, her orange luxury handbag propped smugly in the seat beside her, occupying space meant for a paying passenger. Flight attendants exchanged nervous glances, their professionalism visibly cracking under the weight of Samantha's entitled demands, while Ayaka stood silently in the aisle, phone in hand, her calm presence in stark contrast to Samantha's noisy display, and passengers whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disgust, others quietly raising their phones higher to record the injustice unfolding before them. Samantha, sensing the attention, only grew louder, leaning back in her seat with a laugh that dripped arrogance, announcing to no one in particular, but ensuring all could hear, "Do you people know who my father is? He could buy this entire airline, if he wanted to. I ought to be thankful that I allowed this small person to remain on the same plane as me." Her words landed like daggers, racist venom already lacing her earlier insult, now burning deeper, as she gestured dismissively at Ayaka. The flight attendant closest to them swallowed hard and tried again. "Miss, please. We need to follow boarding assignments. Seat 2A belongs to Ms. Tanaka." But Samantha snapped her manicured fingers like a queen summoning a servant, cutting the woman off mid-sentence. "I don't care what her name is. Perform your duties and relocate her elsewhere. Put her in economy, if you have to. My seat isn't up for debate." Ayaka's jaw tightened imperceptibly, though her eyes remained calm, her silence louder than Samantha's shrieks, and for a moment her poise seemed to unnerve the blonde woman, who sneered more viciously to cover the discomfort. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you don't understand English." Gasps echoed across the cabin, passengers shifting uncomfortably, yet the crew hesitated, trapped between appeasing a powerful family and doing what was right. One man in business attire muttered under his breath, "This is disgusting," while a woman 2 rows back said loudly enough for others to hear, "Record this. People need to see how she's treating her." Still, Samantha preened, flipping her hair back and sipping the champagne that had been set on the tray table, as though she had already won the battle. Ayaka's phone was still in her hand, her thumb poised over the screen as she typed a quiet message to her legal team, her face a mask of serenity that belied the storm of strategic calculation beneath. She knew timing was everything, and Samantha's arrogance was still climbing, still reaching for the peak that would make her downfall spectacular. The minutes stretched long as boarding finished, the cabin nearly full now, murmurs rising louder as passengers discussed the unfolding scene. Some demanded the crew act, others simply shook their heads in resignation, but all eyes kept darting back to Ayaka, waiting for her to respond, waiting for her to break. But she never did. Instead, she stood in silent dignity, her posture unaffected, and her silence was such a stark contrast to Samantha's theatrics that it made them appear even more vulgar. Samantha, emboldened by the lack of immediate consequences, leaned forward in her stolen seat and jabbed a finger at Ayaka, sneering, "What are you even doing here? This is first class, not a bargain bin. Go back to where you belong. You don't look like you can even afford this." Another ripple of outrage rolled through the passengers, the atmosphere charged with anger and disbelief. Yet Ayaka only met Samantha's venom with measured gaze, her calm composure cutting sharper than any insult. "Please, Miss Williams, if you don't move, we may have to involve the captain." The flight attendant tried one more time, her voice shaking, but Samantha laughed and waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, please. The captain knows exactly who my father is. Do you really think anyone here has the guts to cross me?" She raised her voice louder, turning to the other passengers as if putting on a performance. "This airline should be thanking me for flying with them. Without my father's money, half of you wouldn't even have jobs." The words hung in the air like poison, but Ayaka remained silent. Instead, she calmly scrolled through financial holdings, internal contracts, boardroom memos, and other documents on her phone to show that her company owned a controlling stake in this airline. 10 minutes. She thought again, 10 minutes, and the game would shift. Passengers recorded feverishly now, muttering, "She's insane. This is going viral. I can't believe what I'm seeing," while Samantha basked in the chaos she created, oblivious to the trap she was setting for herself. Samantha, overindulgent in entitlement, was unaware that every sneer, racist remark, and arrogant declaration was being recorded, multiplied, and broadcast live outside the cabin. Ayaka, however, was patient. She understood the rhythm of power, the timing of strategy, and she knew that the higher Samantha climbed on her mount of arrogance, the harder she would fall when the truth came crashing down. The plane hummed as final preparations for departure were made, but all eyes remained locked on row 2, where Samantha lounged arrogantly in Ayaka's rightful seat, her bag occupying another, as though leather and gold stitching deserved more respect than human dignity. Her laughter sharp as she continued to boast about her father's empire, blind to the dozens of phones recording every second. Ayaka, still poised in the aisle, finally lifted her phone to her ear, her voice calm and low as she spoke in fluent English. "Yes, it's happening now. I'll need confirmation from the board immediately." The words, delivered with such quiet authority, made several nearby passengers glance at one another, confused, sensing that something larger was unfolding. Samantha scoffed, rolling her eyes, and snapped, "Oh, please, stop pretending you're someone important. Nobody cares who you're calling." But then, as if on cue, the lead flight attendant hurried back down the aisle, her expression tight, whispering something urgently to the captain who had appeared at the cabin door. Murmurs spread quickly as the captain, a man with decades of authority etched in his posture, walked straight to Ayaka, his voice respectful, almost deferential. "Ms. Tanaka, our sincerest apologies. We've just received notice from headquarters." Samantha's smug grin faltered as confusion spread across her face as gasps broke out throughout the cabin. "Notice? What notice?" she demanded. But the captain ignored her, turning to Ayaka with a respectful bow of his head. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced firmly, "this passenger you've seen mistreated is Ms. Ayaka Tanaka, Chief Executive Officer of Tanaka Global Innovations, one of the largest stakeholders in our airline." The words hit like thunder, reverberating to the cabin, and the crowd erupted into murmurs, some cheering, others shaking their heads in awe, while Samantha's face drained of color, her arrogance collapsing into panic as she sputtered, That's not possible. She is false. My father." But the captain cut her off with cold professionalism. "Miss, your father does not own this airline. Ms. Tanaka's company does. Not only have you disregarded a fellow passenger, but you have also disregarded one of the people who support this airline." The power dynamic shattered instantly. Flight attendants moved with urgency, lifting Samantha's bag from the seat, their faces no longer fearful but resolute, while Ayaka, calm as ever, finally stepped forward, reclaiming her seat with dignity that needed no theatrics. Samantha lunged in protest, shrieking, "You can't do this to me. Do you know who I am?" But her voice cracked with desperation, her earlier venom turning to humiliation as passengers laughed bitterly, their phones capturing every second of her downfall. Ayaka set her phone down, folded her hands neatly, and at last spoke, not to Samantha, but to the passengers, her tone even and firm. "This is what entitlement looks like when unchecked. It poisons not just individuals, but entire systems. Power is not measured by arrogance, but by responsibility." The cabin was silenced by her words, which were more powerful than any insult Samantha had ever uttered. The applause began slowly before expanding into a wave of cheers that shook the air. Passengers clapped, and some of them yelled, "That's justice." "Show her." Samantha, red-faced and trembling, sank back against the seat she had stolen moments before, her bravado gone, reduced to frantic mutters about her father's lawyers. But it no longer mattered. The cameras had captured her every word, and the world outside was already watching. The cabin was alive with applause, passengers clapping and cheering, as if they had witnessed a verdict delivered in the highest court, the echo of Ayaka's calm words still hanging like thunder in the recycled air, and while the energy swelled around her, she simply adjusted the lapel of her suit and lowered gracefully into seat 2A, the seat that had always been hers, though stolen for a moment by arrogance, her movements steady, deliberate, a portrait of quiet strength. Samantha, by contrast, sat, slumped in the adjacent row, her face flushed crimson, her sunglasses now useless shields abandoned on the tray table, her voice rising in frantic protest that only deepened her humiliation. "You can't do this. My father will ruin you. You will regret this." But no one listened. Not the passengers who openly recorded her breakdown, not the flight attendants who now moved with renewed confidence, and not even the captain who, with a firm tone, reminded her, "Miss Williams, on this aircraft, status does not excuse misconduct. You may either cooperate or disembark." Gasps rippled to the cabin at his words, and for the first time, Samantha's bravado cracked completely, her arrogance folding into desperation as she begged in whispers rather than shouts, her earlier cruelty now a trembling shadow. Ayaka, on the other hand, didn't pay her any attention at all. Instead, she opened her tablet and calmly looked over her notes, as if the incident had been a minor setback rather than a global spectacle in the making. The passengers, emboldened by her composure, began speaking up, one man declaring, "This woman deserves respect," another adding, "You're a disgrace, Samantha," and their voices, once whispers of discontent, now rang like a chorus of truth. Within minutes, the plane took off, soaring to the clouds, but the drama was already far beyond the cabin walls. Social media had exploded with clips, hashtags trending worldwide. Hashtag justice in the sky. Hashtag Tycoon daughter. Hashtag respect Ayaka. By the time the plane touched down in New York, Ayaka's calm defiance had become an international story. News outlets clamoring with headlines like "Japanese CEO humiliated in first class." Her response shakes airline industry. The airline, facing unprecedented backlash, issued a formal global apology, its executives scrambling to save face, while Samantha's family, once untouchable, now drowned in public outrage, her name synonymous with entitlement and disgrace. Yet through it all, Ayaka remained unchanged. No gloating, no vengeance, only dignity. At the press conference the next day, reporters shouted questions, but she raised her hand lightly, silencing the room, and said, "What happened on that flight is not about me. It is about every person who has ever been told they don't belong, who has been insulted for their race, their gender, their place in the world. Power without respect is not power at all. It is weakness, and weakness, exposed, collapses." Her words, calm but resonant, travel far beyond cameras, sinking into the hearts of millions who watched her endure insult without breaking, who had seen arrogance defeated not by anger but by patience and strength. And as she stepped down from the podium, her image burned into history not as a victim, not even as just a CEO, but as a symbol of what true leadership looks like, poised, unshaken, and unmovable, even 30,000 feet above the earth where arrogance thought to fly unchecked.